the time. They say that they feel ostracized from society, that they have been canceled, kicked out, that they are looked to as being inferior, that they are incapable. And this affects them deeply, such that they lose respect for authority. When promised help doesn't materialize, when their time on a waiting list for a home goes from 2 weeks to 2 months to 2 years, they start to become very disenamored, and usually by then the drug trade has gotten to them, addiction takes over, and the rest is a spiral to the final end. Very few people actually get off the street. A very, very tiny percentage of those that are able to overcome the addiction. I have here all sorts of statistics in front of me, but I think I've pretty much given you the gist. Homelessness isn't just a temporary state of affairs. Yes, Eugene?
If you allow me, I'll say a few more things afterwards.
Absolutely. So, what I'm looking for specifically, I mentioned earlier, is that you do consider us as a group, a charity, an outreach that the Knights would like to support, possibly as a primary charity or consideration. I've asked the same of the CWL. I've asked the same of the Seniors Prayer Group. And many of our prayers have been answered in receiving the support of these groups. We're also asking the Archdiocese of Ottawa itself to consider us as a prime ministry. And I use the word ministry because over and over again, that's what we are, that's what we do, it's the work we do on the street. I do believe it to be the work of God. He's doing it through our hands, why He's chosen some of us. I do not know that answer, but the work goes on. I recently read a treatise, it was called The Economics of Giving. I do, as a good auto mechanic, I like to find answers for things. And I find answers for society's woes often comes through studying economics. So this one gentleman wrote an economic book on altruism. And he wasn't concerned with any one specific charity. He wasn't concerned with one specific group of people. He lived his whole life, and still does, wanting to give. And he wants to analyze the giving to such fine detail to get the metrics on it, to know where, what are the best charities to give to. So I'm going to give you a brief summary, or the gist of his book. He came up with a little bit of criteria for people to use when deciding which charity to give to. So the first one, is there a need to solve the issue? I think it's pretty clear to everyone here, everyone in Ottawa, Canada, that street homelessness is an issue that needs to be solved. So our group meets the criteria number one. There is a need to solve this issue. The second criteria is the need already being served, i.e. are there multiple organizations that are involved in the issue, trying to mend it. I would say that when it comes to the unique category of our MVPs that are chronic street homeless, there's very few that do, and as a volunteer group, I would say that it's pretty much us. The more that I work or volunteer on the streets, the more that I see how unique SOS Street Outreach Society is, because we're not just there for a moment to give someone something. We're there all in earnest to go further, to give the people hope, to let them realize their own dignity, and to work at higher levels to end homelessness. So we go full circle. So I would say that there is us and probably very few other agencies that work at the level we do. Another criteria is to look at any group, charitable organization, and examine the overhead. If someone gives $1, how much of that dollar is actually going to the homeless person? Is it 50%, 40%? I can tell you about our street outreach because we are completely volunteer. And many of us also volunteer in the contributions that are given out. We have almost no overhead. That has recently changed in becoming a corporation. There was money spent to become incorporated, and I have no shyness in letting you all know that Eugene stepped forward and provided those funds. I think a round of applause is deserved here. I and Mika were able to find a lawyer that worked primarily pro bono to make it happen. So we have record books, we have a bank account that we're opening, so there's very, very small fees moving forward. So we have almost no overhead. So virtually every contribution made goes directly to the street. So we meet that third criteria. You get a lot of bang for your buck when you contribute either $1 or a good to our society because it goes straight out where it's meant to. So almost 100% of your contribution goes to the good. Another criteria is where is the need? Is it overseas? Is it in a different part of the country? Well, this one is very clear. It's at home. This giving goes directly to your neighbors in Ottawa, to people on the street. So we are local, and we are very, very frontline. Another criteria is how does it affect others? We can see how any contribution that helps us feed, clothe, give hope, and ultimately transition someone from being a street homeless person into a home. So it has a tremendous effect on the people we're serving. And how does it affect others? And a big question that I penciled in is, does it inspire others to action? And I can tell you from my experience, it certainly does. When we're marching across the market, downtown, feeding homeless, people come up to us and ask, who are you people? To me, it was important that we have a piece of clothing that identifies us. So many of our members, and anybody can be a member, if you give 2 cents, you're a member. Because you're here today, you're a member. If you're a member of our society, you're a member of our group. But it does attract people. I put posts on Facebook explaining what we do, showing pictures, and that's how our organization has grown. We've gone from 2 people in our network to over 300 direct contributors in one form or another. And as we continue to grow and get more media coverage, more attention, we're now often a spokesperson when an event happens. They'll talk to one of our group. So we certainly are inspiring others, and that was one of our original goals. How are we going to change the situation? We have to inspire people to contribute, to help make a change. We're not going to leave this to political direction. After billions of dollars have been spent, the problem is still there and it's growing exponentially. So a difference has to start somewhere, and as Margaret Mead said, people that are concerned in a community can, with some effort, change the world. And the last criteria that I added in, how does it affect you? How do you feel in contributing to a group of people, volunteers that you know, people amongst yourselves that are out there working very hard, tirelessly I may add, to change the status quo and to minimize street homelessness? We're very close to doing great things. I spoke the other day to the Catholic Women's League. If we had an acre of land, Eugene has worked very hard in gaining some support, and we have Mr. Tilley of the Ottawa Mission said if we can get that acre of land, he's ready to start help building a tiny home community, which would be a first for Ottawa. What sort of contributions can be made? Just about anything. You see in some of these pictures that Knights have graciously donated many coats to our organization. I've had the privilege of putting them around the shoulders of many shivering people. That's one way to help. A donation of any type of good is wonderful. We buy fresh fruit each week, bananas and clementines. And we spend about $45 every week doing this, a little over $200 a month. This is why we often ask for financial donations, because we have people that will go pick up, go shopping. Our biggest expense is boxed juice. A skid of boxed juice is fairly heavy. Many seniors can't lift it. You may see on some slides when we gain enough funds, we'll go and buy a gigantic cartload of juice. Most of it is in my apartment. It's a little warehouse, storage room. We do have a list that's been provided. Just about any good we'll take. Clothing, non-perishable food items. We get gifts from Beechwood Cemetery after each celebration of life. If there's leftover food from the small buffets that are put out, we get a phone call. So just to give you some ideas, if you know any organization that has food to spare after an event, if you can put us in touch or manage the process yourself, it's almost endless. We have Mr. Seward, who lives in senior center not too far away. He puts out a box with a note on it, and just about every day he gives me a call to come empty out the box because he's got something else in there. So I did put out here a bunch of empty peanut butter jars. They're very hard to get the labels off. I put a sticker on it that says Good Neighbors Ottawa. That was our name before we became Street Outreach Society. Good Neighbors couldn't be used in a federal registry because there are many organizations with a similar name. I invited the CWL members to take a jar home and put pocket change. And it all adds up. I always say a little change makes a big change. So this is one simple idea. I have in front of me a hand-made picture of the Virgin with baby Jesus, and that was won in a raffle at the Latin Parish, and forgive me, I forget the name, just off of Main Street in Ottawa, at a fundraiser I attended. This would be something beautiful to raffle off. $5 a ticket. When 100 tickets are sold, the name is drawn and the winner is declared. It's an idea. I brought it home and I said, I'm sure we could do something with this. It might be an idea to put out in front of the Knights to see if something could be done there. So I'm just trying to give you some ideas that may inspire you to action. I'm sure by now you have some idea what we're doing, but it's very real, it's very street level, and I do believe given all of the sermons I've been hearing in the last several months, given the direction that the Archdiocese itself has put out for this year, we are doing the work that we're called to do. So I do appreciate your listening. I would appreciate any help of any sort that you might like to give. You have my contact information in front of you. We're creative. We're open to any ideas you might have. And I think I've gone on long enough. You certainly have the idea, and I'll give Eugene the floor to close out. And I would like to thank you all for your extreme patience throughout all of this. Thank you.